Alright, so today we are going to be looking at the dollhouse from all kinds of odd angles as we put the ceiling paper in. So stay tuned and see how this all goes. Alright, so I've got you looking at the top floor of the dollhouse. This is the ceiling, this is the floor, this is the big room, and over through this doorway is the bathroom. Like I said in the intro, we are going to put the ceiling papers in. I like to start my wallpapering job in a dollhouse by doing the ceilings and then the walls, and then if I'm doing anything to the floors, I do those after that. So I have already put a couple of pieces of paper in. I've put behind this part of the roof, the back roof, I wallpapered the back of it, and then there's just a small chunk that's at kind of a separate piece. I'll try to have a picture of it on the blog post, but I figured those two pieces would be very, very difficult for me to show you on the video because it would be hard to show that angle. So I'm going to show you this big piece. I'm also going to do the bathroom off camera because it's just really simple. I'm going to show you how to cut, measure and cut for this kind of weird shaped piece that goes around the dormer. We're going to do this. We're going to do these two pieces. You can see that of the ceiling. I'm going to leave these pieces for next week, probably when we do the walls. And then if we have time, we'll do the bottom floor ceiling also. So a couple of reasons. Another reason I did this area here off camera was because I've never used this product. This is the wallpaper gel that I bought. I'd never used it before, so I decided I wanted to play with it off camera to see if I needed to make any changes from how I normally wallpaper a dollhouse. And it seems to be working just fine. It works pretty much the way I've done every other dollhouse wallpapering that I've ever done. So let me go get my ruler or my tape measure and a piece of paper so I can make some notes, and I'll show you how I'm going to measure for this section. Alright, so I've got my tablet, I've got a pencil, and I've got a tape measure. And before anything else before we go any further, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to attempt not to sneeze on camera, but if I do, I'm sorry, I apologize in advance. So the first measurement I want to take, I want to measure how wide this is. This is 17¼ inches. So I'm going to write that down on my paper. And I need to measure how tall or how long, the height of this area. This is kind of a strange shape because of the way this is done. So I've got it right up to the top of this piece, and it looks like it is about 12 3/4. I'm going to cut it actually 13 inches tall because I want to cut it a little long. I want it to overlap, make sure you can see where I'm pointing. I want it to overlap underneath the wallpaper, which is part of why I'm doing this now, as opposed to putting the wallpaper and then the ceiling paper. The ceiling paper will be kind of wrapped around the corners, and then the wallpapers will go over. So as we move down the wall, this paper, well, the paper's up here, I'm actually wallpapering over the edge of it with this piece. This piece is going to fold over these edges into the dormer area, and then the next layer, the next piece of ceiling paper will go over this one, and that will wrap down onto the wall. Then the wallpaper will come up to the edge of the ceiling. That way we don't have any chance of exposed wood. Now, one thing I did do off camera was I came in here with some caulking and some spackle. Both, some places I used spackle, some I used caulking, depending on what was easier to get into the spots. And I kind of neatened up. I didn't do it perfectly, but I got some of these gaps filled. If there were gaps, I filled them. So now I'm going to draw myself a little diagram so that I know what I'm doing. And this paper, so like this paper is going to be cut bigger than it needs to be. So now, this piece, that's 7 inches. Which means I have how much here? If I do measure in different places, I make sure that I've got plenty. And then there's 10 here. This part, I don't actually need this cut. I will. Okay, so I'm going to cut, that's 5 and about a half. And I'm just making a very, very rough diagram. All right, let's go. I'm going to kind of show you what I drew here. Let's see, make sure you can see it. So I've got the roof piece. I know I need to come down here. I know I need to cut. So I'm going to cut a piece that's basically this shape. So let's go over to my cutting area and we'll get out a piece of paper and start cutting it. All right, so this is that art paper from Canson that I bought that I showed you on the wallpaper haul video that I did a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure even when that went up. So I know this is bigger than I need. So my area is 17¼ inches wide. So I am going to cut this paper at about probably 18 inches, just to be sure that I have plenty of paper. And I'm working on the back side of a quilting self-healing mat. I like to use the back side of my self-healing mats for crafting, and then I use the front when I'm sewing. That way it stays nice and I get to use both sides of it. Now this piece will be big enough to use probably for the bathroom. Now make sure you're using, because this piece needs to be, this is not a symmetrical piece of paper, so it needs to be cut correctly. When this paper has 2 sides, and I'm picking, this is the side that the label was on, this is the other side, this is the side I'm using as the right side. It's usually the side I use. It has a slight difference, not a huge difference between them. So I've added some extra space so I know I've got enough width that I can play around with this. So this was 7 inches. I need my other ruler. And I know that I need about, I've got extra length here to extra amount both directions, so I've got plenty of space to play with. So I need to have at least 5½ inches for the top part, and I need to have this come over about 7 inches. So I'm going to cut this at 6, and I'm going to cut this at about 7½. So I'm going to kind of line these 2 rulers up. Now you could definitely draw lines with your paper, on your paper with a pencil. And speaking of pencil, I need to make a mark because I'm having extra paper here so that I can cut away after my glue dries. That's how I like to do this. So I am going to go back to 7½ inches. Actually, I'm going to go 7¼ So let's do this again. I want 7¼ That way I know that I've got enough paper. There we go. So I'm going to get this out of the way. Got this lined up at 7¼ inches is on my straight edge of my paper. Make sure that's cut. And now I'm going to cut this. And I'm going to cut to that line. And it doesn't matter if I cut into this area because this is going to be the part that we take off. Save these because these pieces we cut away we can probably use at another point in the dollhouse. Now I'm going to start by scoring a line about a 1/4 inch away from this edge because I want it to fold over under the wallpaper. And I'll probably come back and trim this off because I don't need it to go that far. In fact, I know I don't need it to go that far because that unmeasured. Oh, that'll be fine. I'm going to cut it off. It'll be fine. So I'm going to fold this up where I just scored. I'm confusing myself trying to explain it to you guys. How's that? I'm going to turn the camera over, reorient you. We'll make sure that this is going to fit, and then we'll come back, score the other end, and then I'll show you how to put the glue on. All right. Now, I need this is going to fold it over. So I'm kind of scoring along the edge of here. This will be fine. That will go down later. I'm going to make sure it meets up to where I want it to be. And I'm going to kind of score it there. And I'm just kind of holding it in place and making my line, scoring where I need it to score, where I need it to fold. All right, now I'm going to take it back over the cutting mat. We're going to trim this again. All right, so I'm going to make a slight cut like this so that I can... And some of this will actually be gluing down now, and some will have to glue down later after the first part of the glue dries. So I'm just kind of reinforcing that fold mark I made when I was over in the dollhouse. And now this is way too long. I don't need this much space. But I knew I was going to have that. I'd rather cut off some than have it too short when I got over there. Still a little longer than I need to be. I'm going to turn this way to cut it. I don't want to cut too short. There's a fine line between having enough to fold over underneath and having so much that it makes too much fold. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut these corners. Hopefully I didn't just cut that too short. I've cut that up. I'm not going to worry about that. This, so it's going to fold up on the wall. And I'm going to trim this back so that it's got approximately a 1/4 inch or so to fold over under the wallpaper. Now I'm going to go retrieve my paste and my brush and my parchment paper. All right. So I've got a piece of parchment paper that I'm working on. This, you buy it where you buy like plastic wrap and stuff for your kitchen. I love working on this. I work on it a lot because it's a disposable surface that I can protect. I'm protecting my cutting board, I'm protecting my table, whatever I want to work on when I'm working on something messy. This works really well. So I'm going to put a coat of this on the entire back. Now make sure you're on the back. And I'm just using just an inexpensive chip brush. You want to make sure you have a coat of this on the entire piece of paper. And the reason I'm working on this piece of parchment is any extra goes on the parchment. That way I don't accidentally lay this, lay my next piece of wallpaper down into it. I can wipe that up. It just contains the mess. Try not to get wallpaper paste on the front. All right. Now let's move the camera back over to where where you can see in the dollhouse, and we'll put a layer of this inside. All right, now I'm going to coat the wood on the inside of here. Try not to get it on the part of the wallpaper that I've already got up on the ceiling, on the parts I already did. But you want a pretty good coat. And over where you want the wallpaper to go over. We're not going to fold this part over until this first part dries. Now make sure that you wash this brush out or wrap it up really well. You are using it for glue, so you don't want it to dry in the brush. All right, now you can kind of tell if you've got a good coat because it's shiny. Got my wallpaper and bring it over, and because both surfaces are wet, it'll slide around a little bit without tearing. This is a little bit stronger than some of the wallpapers, and this holds up pretty well to wet. And I love how it does look like ceiling and paint. All right. A little too much there. I'll clean that up later. Now I've got just a piece of a craft stick, and I'm using this to push my wallpaper. Oops. Work any bubbles of air or, pockets of air, extra paste, and don't worry if it looks like it's buckling a little bit. It's going to look like it's kind of puckery at first. That's normal. 9 times out of 10 when it does that, when it gets dry, it's fine. So we are going to leave this to dry, and when this is dry, then we'll come back, we'll cut this, we'll be able to fold it down a little bit, and then we'll go on to the next piece. So I'm going to turn the camera off and let this get a chance to get dry. All right, now that that has dried, we're going to cut the paper to go in these little places here. And like a lot of the areas of the wallpaper, this is kind of a tricky spot. So I'm going to make a pattern. I'm going to make a pattern out of some craft paper. Normally I would use printer paper from my computer, but 2 reasons I'm not. Number one, I'm almost out of printer paper. So I have a chance to get any, and I don't want to run out. But also, I figured craft paper would be a little easier for you guys to see on camera what I'm doing, because we're working with white paint, white primer paint, and then against white paper. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make the pattern for this side here, because you guys can see it a little bit better. I'm sorry I can't really get you in a better position. At least I can't figure out one. So I'm going to cut a chunk of paper. We're not going to cut this all at once. What we're going to do, I'm going to get a piece that can go there. Okay, so fold that there. And this is going to be a relatively easy one. Once the dollhouse is standing upright, actually I'm going to cut this shorter than that. And I'm going to cut another square. Now cut a square. And I am going to temporarily tape this in. I've got just some cheap dollar store Scotch tape. Transparent tape. It's not Scotch tape because it's cheap dollar store stuff. It works just fine for this. Alright, so I'm going to tape this in place. That piece of tape is just temporary. I've got this lined up with the ceiling line where the crease is going to be, and I've got it lined up with the front wall. We're going to actually add a little extra paper in both of those spots. We're just not going to add it to the template. Now I've got another piece of paper. And I'm going to add that. It doesn't have to be perfect on your edges. All right, that's fine. That leaves a little bit here that I can work with. And it leaves a little bit there. In fact, if I go up, yeah, I can go up. So I'm going to bend this over. This edge we need to have right because this edge needs to be cut. The wallpaper or ceiling paper needs to be cut flush with that edge. So I'm cutting off this corner so it will match. And I'm going to get a couple of pieces of tape. And I'm going to try and do this without sticking my head in front of the camera and still be able to see what I'm doing. And like I said, you will get to see this a little bit better when we do the wallpaper. And I've done this before on projects. I know I did it on the toy store. When I did the toy store interior, I did this on a couple of spots. All right, so now I have that one. I'm not going to tape that because I'm just going to use that one piece of tape to hold it. Now I need another piece with a straight edge. I like to do it this way because then I don't have to cut to match my edges. I kind of line it up and use this kind of puzzle method. Yeah, that lines up. So this is lining up here and here. I don't care what this is doing. I can make a pattern for a really odd sized piece just by cutting little pieces, smaller pieces, and working them in. For me, this works really well. I know I read about this method somewhere, but I have no idea now where I would have read about it. So I would love to give credit to whoever came up with it, but I don't know who that person was. Now I'm going to cut a piece that's going to go only to this corner. So it lines up here and it goes to this corner, and that's all it lines up with. It doesn't line up anywhere else. Back in. And this will be easier for you guys when you're working on your dollhouse because you won't have to have it angled in such a way that you can also have a camera seeing what you're doing. Alright, now I've got that done. So I just have one more edge to worry about. I'm not worried about what it looks like in the middle. This one might actually do it. Hold it. Yes, and this one is going to be that final piece. So I'm going to give myself a couple of pieces of tape. This way I don't have to do any fancy measuring. I've got one place I've missed, so I'm going to have to fill a piece in there. I don't care about missing the middle, but I do want to make sure I have all the edge. Whoops, I missed that with the tape. You do go through a lot of whatever kind of paper you're using, and you go through a lot of tape for this. That's not quite where I wanted it. I did not get that in the right spot. I'm trying to avoid putting my head in your way. I managed to miss. Okay, so that part needs to be cut off. And I need a small piece there. Don't have, come on. I just want to have this in this spot here. And it's okay if this isn't perfectly flat too. All right, now this is fitting pretty well. So I'm going to pull it out. Remember, it's just taped in that one spot, and it's taped to the wood. All right, so now we've got this piece of paper, which is probably kind of hard to see on the video, but once we move to the cutting mat, it will be easier to see. Now I do want to get my pencil. Well, off camera I'll have to do that. Now I'm going to do some more taping on the back to kind of hold this together, because if you don't, it's going to kind of get worked out of position. All right, I do need to go find my pencil or pen, and I also need to move you over to the cutting area where we're going to cut the paper. So I will be right back. All right, as you can see, this is not a perfect pattern, but it gives me a good idea. Now, this is a flush edge. This is the edge that's going against the ceiling paper we already put in. So this one I need to cut there. These three edges on this piece will all need to be a little bit bigger because they'll need to fold down the wall. And will it fit on this piece? This is a piece left over from that I cut out of the piece we put on the other day. So, yeah, this will work. I left my knife clear over there. So we are going to cut this out. So the first place I'm going to cut, and make sure you're cutting, again, this is not a symmetrical piece. You need to make sure that you are cutting the right side of the pattern. That's why I've written my notes on this side. I wrote down, I don't know if you saw that, I wrote down flush edge, ceiling edge, window wall. That way I know where it goes. Also, I tested it, and it's going to fit on the other side too. And that side's going to have less pieces that will need to be left. Oops. It will have a couple of extra pieces that are not cut with an extra piece. I'm having trouble forming trains of thought this morning, apparently. I'm going to cut this about there. This is not a perfect pattern. It's not meant to be a perfect pattern. It's meant to give us something that we can use. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to fit this in, but I'm not going to move the camera back yet in case I need to do some trimming. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got this folded up. I kind of creased the edges where I needed it to be. I've cut this piece off there, and I'm going to cut across like this. That way we'll have a nice neat fold here also. So now I will go ahead and turn the camera around. I'm actually going to cut another piece with this, and only these two edges will have extra to fold over. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and then I'll have both pieces when we go over to glue them in. Alright, so this is now cut and ready to go. So let's make sure it's going to fit perfectly. So it's sticking over just a little bit here. So I want to do some fine tuning of our piece. We're going to do this before we get it wet with wallpaper paste and in here. It sticks it just the tiniest bit. Just the tiniest amount there. It's not sitting where it's supposed to. There it goes. Okay, still got just the tiniest bit right there, and then this one will be ready. So let's fit the other piece that I cut. So I cut another piece, and this one only has two sides that fold over. The one back here, which will be the equivalent of this wall, and then the one that hits the wall here. This seam on this one is cut flush, and this needs to be glued in second, because it is what is going to go up and cover that part that folds over. So I know you guys can't see this, so I'm going to have to trim some spots on here too, basically the same places, just along there, and when I get that done, I'll bring you back. Alright, so this is ready now. They both fit beautifully. So I'm going to take this one out and lay it right here where I can find it. I am going to See if I can get this out. It fits so well it's hard to get out. Off camera, I'm going to put wallpaper paste on the back of this, also on the back of this one, and then I'm also going to coat these areas with wallpaper paste, and then I'll come back and show you the fitting of this. All right, wallpaper paste is spread on all the surfaces that need it. Let's get this in here. And hopefully you'll be able to see a little bit better when we get to the wallpaper, but the ceiling paper is really important too, so that's what we're doing this week. And some kind of scraper is really important because you want to get your air bubbles out, you want to get any bubbles of paste out, anything like that. But that fits it because we made that pattern and then we dry fit. I did a dry fit of the paper. See how quick and easy that goes in once the paste is down? Wipe my hands off and get this one. Now this one, we have two places that are really important. Fold it down. We want to make sure it matches, it meets up with this peak, and we want to make sure that this front edge looks good, because those are the two places that are really going to show up if they're not right. I've got, my paper is folded. You can't see it from where you are, but I can see it. Okay, I need to wipe this off. Should have brought a wet wipe. I like to have a wet wipe or a baby wipe with me when I'm doing this, and I forgot it. Really get those edges that are going to go under the wallpaper. Make sure those are sealed down tight. And that's all there is to it. So I need to go get my paintbrush cleaned off. I'm going to let this dry. And then, because I have some things to do now, and then when I get back from my errands, we are going to put the ceiling paper in the bottom floor. And I'm going to talk to you about something I did a little different from the kit that was a happy accident. So we'll talk about that when we get ready to do the ceiling paper for downstairs. All right, hopefully we've got an angle that works here for both of us, or all of us. So we are going to put the ceiling paper on the lower floor. And I want to address something here, and I'll talk more about it when we put the stairs in. I had a happy accident with putting this upper floor in. I was informed by a viewer that I had put this floor in backwards, that this stair opening is supposed to be over here. And I didn't even think about it because of how I'm going to do my stairs, but I'm really glad I did, because one of my pet peeves with dollhouses is the stairs are always designed to run towards the back of the house, not towards the front like in a real house. So if you follow the directions on your dollhouse instruction book with this dollhouse, this hole for the stairs will be over here, away from the door. Where's the, there, you can kind of see. I prefer mine here, and we'll talk more. When I put the stairs in, we're going to have a whole long discussion. There'll be a blog post about why I put my stairs on this end. So, off camera, I have cut this long rectangle, and I've kind of scored it. It's going to fit. I've got it scored so it folds down over the wall here, folds down over the walls here, and I've got some extra here. Now you notice it's covering the stair opening. I want it to cover the stair opening. This is going to be much easier to cut once this is glued on and the glue is dry than it would be to try and match a hole that's pre-cut. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to apply our wallpaper gel to the back side of my paper and to the wood on the ceiling. And when that's all ready to go, I will be back and we will get this in place. All right, I know I don't have you in exactly the same spot, but I'm not sure exactly where the same spot was. So I have this lovely goo on both surfaces. One of the advantages to having it on both surfaces is it makes it much easier to slide the paper if you need to. And do be careful if you've got nail polish on. I noticed that my nail polish did come off on an edge of my paper on the upstairs. So I'm trying to be a little more careful about scraping my nails against the paper. And they do, I'm sure they make official tools for doing what I'm doing here. It's just, this was convenient. So that's what I'm using. So now all I have to do is just kind of squeegee this, just in case there's any air bubbles, any bits of paste that are too thick. All of that will come up. And now I'm going to let this dry. I'll come back and check 2 or 3 times to make sure it's drying nicely. And when this is dry, we'll come back, we'll trim here and here, and then we will have our ceiling paper done. Now, one thing I do want to show you is, I don't know if you can tell how far down this is. We've used almost the entire tub, and this, I believe, was the bigger size tub, on just these ceiling papers. So I'm definitely going to have to order more of this so we won't get all of our wallpaper done with one. I was wondering how far that would go since I've never used this. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to clean my brush. And when this is dry, I will come back and show you how it looks and how to trim it. Alright, I'm really hoping this position works. I have moved the camera and the dollhouse multiple times to try and show you this. So this is the second floor, and this is the ceiling paper that we put in. I actually put it in yesterday in this video. It was earlier in the video. And we need to trim this flap off. Oops, there's a piece sticking up. And what I'm going to do, I'm supporting the back of it with, this is a self-healing craft mat. This one I actually got at Dollar Tree. It's $1. It's the measured area is 6 by 8. This is a really good deal. If you have a Dollar Tree and they have these, pick one up even if you don't sew. They're great for crafting. I actually keep this on my desk for quick trimming of stuff. So I'm going to run my knife. Hopefully my blade is good. And I'm putting this here for 2 reasons. Number one, I can cut against it and it won't hurt it. But secondly, this is going to protect and support my ceiling paper so it doesn't rip away from the ceiling as I'm cutting. And because we wet it with the wallpaper paste, it should cut off really nicely. It looks like I probably should have. I'm gonna have to go get a different knife, a different blade in my knife. Hold on. All right, fresh blade in my knife. Sorry about that. I should know I need a fresh blade to do this because I have been cutting all the wallpaper with that blade. And do plan to replace the blade in your knife that you're using to cut your wallpaper at least a couple of times because paper dulls blades really quickly. And we want to be precise. We don't want to leave jagged cuts. Work very carefully because you are using a sharp knife and you're working close to your skin. So, all right, well, I'm going to have to neaten this up a little bit, but I'll do that off camera simply because it's just too hard to do this where I can have the camera see it too. I have to be able to get in there. But I'll trim that up and neaten it up off camera, but that is now trimmed. Now I'm going to reorient the camera and we are going to cut out for the fireplace, or not the fireplace, the stairwell. So I got to figure out where to put you for this. Oh, right, I'm hoping this is a good spot. So basically we are going to do the same thing. I'm going to try not to knock my camera off the table. I'm just going to, and I will probably have to do this without the camera so that I can get it neater, but I'm just giving you an idea what I'm doing. Be careful because you are working in rather close quarters there. But basically, I just need to cut that out. So let me get this cut out where I can see what I'm doing, and then I'll bring the camera back in and we'll look at the ceiling from the other side, from the bottom side of the dollhouse. All right, I've got this all trimmed up as flush as I can get it. It's not perfect, it's fine. I might take a piece of sandpaper and get off a little bit of the edges, but that is our ceiling paper in the dollhouse So that's the end of today's video. I hope you found this information useful. If you have any questions, be sure and ask either in the comments on the blog post or on the Facebook page. If you haven't found the Facebook page and followed it, I invite you to come join us over there. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel and you enjoy my content, please do subscribe and hit that like button and make a comment. Likes and comments on videos help the channel to grow, and I'd really like the channel to grow. Share the links with your friends, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.